All right, let's dive into something I think pretty relatable today. You've probably heard this idea before, right? That people who, tend towards worry, maybe stress, more mood swings.
Hmm. What psychologists call neuroticism.
Exactly, neuroticism,
Right.
that they often seem to, well, struggle a bit more in their romantic relationships. It just feels kind of intuitive, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And look, that general link, it's been seen in research for a long, long time. But the really big question, the tricky part, has always been how. Like, how does that personality trait actually translate day to day in a relationship?
Yeah.
What are those specific interactions, the moments that connect the trait to feeling less satisfied?
Exactly. It's one thing to say, oh, it's the trait, but what's the mechanism on the ground? And that's really the mission for this deep dive. We're looking at some really insightful new research. It was highlighted in Neuroscience News. We're trying to pull back the curtain on those actual daily behaviors.
Yeah, and what's really powerful about this particular study is how they did it. They used a daily diary method.
Yeah.
So they had 246 participants reporting on their relationship stuff, interactions, experiences
Over a whole week.
over a week, yeah. And that let them get this much more kind of granular, moment-by-moment picture, much closer than, the traditional studies often can.
Okay, so getting really into the nitty-gritty, what did that daily look actually show? What emerged as the main sort of drival connecting that neuroticism to lower satisfaction?
Well, the key finding is it's quite clear, maybe a little stark even, it was the negative behaviors.
Okay.
Specifically, they pinpointed what they call conflict tactics. These were like incredibly significant in explaining that link.
Conflict tactics. So you mean like actual fighting, how people argue?
Precisely. We're talking about behaviors during disagreements
Yeah.
or, times of tension. Things like criticizing your partner or maybe emotional withdrawal, pulling away.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to make them feel guilty, maybe? Even just escalating things, making it more emotionally distressing. It seems like these specific actions during conflict are the engine driving that lower satisfaction for people higher in neuroticism.
Okay, right. That makes a certain kind of sense. More negative stuff equals less happy relationship. But here's where I got really interested. You might naturally think, okay, if negative behaviors are the problem, surely doing more positive things could, like, balance it out, couldn't it? Offering extra support, compliments, that kind of thing.
That's a totally natural thought. And look, positive behaviors, generally good for relationships, absolutely.
Mm.
But here's what was fascinating, maybe even a bit counterintuitive in this study's findings. While people definitely reported positive behaviors happening,
Uh-huh.
those positive behaviors did not significantly explain away or buffer that link between neuroticism and relationship satisfaction.
Wow. So just being nice sometimes isn't really enough if the way you handle conflict is, well, damaging.
That seems to be what this specific study is suggesting, yeah. If you think about the bigger picture, it kind of implies that the damage from those specific negative conflict behaviors, it might
Yeah.
just outweigh the good stuff, the positive impact of other nice actions, at least in the context of this trait.
Okay.
The crucial thing seems to be the presence and the sheer impact of those harmful ways of handling conflict.
So, okay, let's bring this back. What does all this mean for you listening right now, maybe thinking about your own relationship dynamics? This research seems to offer a really, well, practical focus point.
I think so.
Instead of getting hung up on the trait itself, oh, someone is neurotic, it points right at the behaviors,
Yeah,
the actions.
exactly. It suggests that if you or perhaps your partner recognize maybe higher levels of neuroticism are present, the most effective path to improving satisfaction might not be just general attempts to, be more positive,
Right.
but maybe a really targeted focus, identifying and actively working to
Mhm.
reduce those specific harmful conflict tactics we talked about.
Because, well, your underlying personality trait, that's relatively stable, harder to change, but your behavior, how you act in a specific moment, especially a tense one, that's something you can potentially influence, right?
Absolutely.
This study really seems to underscore the power in focusing on how you act when things get difficult.
Which really leads to an important question for reflection, I think. If these daily conflict behaviors are highlighted as such a critical link, what small, maybe specific behaviors in your own moments of disagreement could you perhaps identify and then consciously work on reducing?
Yeah, shifting the focus from just the trait, the label, to the actual intentional actions you take. It's about behavior, not just being.
Yeah.